Trump's family getting even richer. His son, Eric's wealth is soaring, now about $500 million, billion, not million, billion, richer, thanks to a massive stake in a cryptocurrency mining company, which just went public. Its market debut. The amount that Eric made from that is more than any of his family's individual real estate holdings, according to Forbes. And Eric has been touting the importance of crypto ever since his dad went back to the White House. And since Trump's reelection, the price of cryptocurrency, the most valuable one specifically, Bitcoin, has surged up 63% since Trump was elected to his second term. And Trump's been very vocal about backing crypto. Eric Trump has been traveling the world promoting Trump family crypto ventures. This week in Japan, his wealth wasn't the only thing soaring. In sort of a PR stunt, he had a high-ranking sumo wrestler match, carried out of the ring, all of that to promote what's going on with cryptocurrency. And earlier this week, he was in Hong Kong, where he made this prediction.
I really believe in the next several years, Bitcoin hits $1 million. There's no question Bitcoin hits $1 million.
10 times what it is now. It's now $110,000. The more that Eric Trump promotes it, though, the higher it seems to go. He's got friends in powerful places. And Dan Alexander is with us now, senior editor of Forbes. So, Dan, I guess let's just start with this very basic thing. Eric Trump is Trump's youngest son. Just how, Barron, of course, by his first marriage. How rich is Eric Trump right now, and how much of that wealth is tied to crypto?
Well, he's got about a $500 million stake in this new company, as you just mentioned, and then he has a couple $100 million outside of that, and a lot of that is crypto too. So if you look as a percentage, probably 95% of his wealth is in crypto right now. So this is the key of his fortune. It's not just the core, but it's really almost the whole thing at this point. Which
is pretty stunning, right? You go from real estate to is something so intangible, but it is stunning. How easy was it for him to get all this wealth in crypto?
Well, the idea of a Bitcoin mining company isn't new. What's new is that it's a Trump family member who's leading the show. And so if you combine those two things and you have this trading on the public markets, where public markets, mom and pop shareholders have shown themselves willing to pay extremely high prices for Trump-connected assets. You can get these massive valuations because people are just bidding up shares of these to sort of unreasonable heights. And then if the Trumps hang on to a big chunk of those companies, as Eric has in this case, then it inflates their wealth an incredible amount.
Right. And this is, obviously there's a surge in crypto. A lot of that, maybe in part, we could discuss that because of the president's backing and support for crypto, right? But even within that, there's sort of who wins and who loses and who are the relative winners in that world. So it's a very basic question. Would Eric Trump have gotten this rich if his dad weren't president?
Certainly not. If you rewind a year ago, Donald Trump was worth about $4.3 billion, and most of his fortune was wrapped up in the Trump Media and Technology Group, the parent company to Truth Social. That company had few followers, wasn't making any money. Its relevance really seemed to depend on whether or not Trump was reelected. Once he was, though, then the Trump family's essentially copied that formula that they used with that company. Create an asset, who cares if it makes money or not? Let's put it on the public markets and hold on to a big chunk of it. And that's exactly what they've done in this case. Just following that formula, none of that would have been possible had Trump not become president again.
It's really incredible. Dan, thank you so much, as always, for your excellent reporting and sharing it. Thanks.
Some troubling developments in the last 96 hours as 4 of the most senior people in the executive branch have signaled that they and the U.S. military are above the law as long as they do whatever is in Donald Trump's wishes. This isn't hyperbole. On Tuesday, the U.S. surveilled a boat until it entered international waters and then conducted a military strike on that boat. The administration says the boat was carrying drugs from Venezuela, with the final destination for those drugs being the United States. The administration claims 11 people were on board, people it describes as narco-terrorists. Importantly, those people were not given a chance to surrender. They were apparently identified, determined to be guilty, sentenced to death and killed with no court of law, no administrative tribunal, no authorization of the use of military force. The administration has not offered any evidence to back up any of its claims about the boat or its occupants or what it was carrying. We're all just meant to take their word for it. As for legal justification for the shocking use of military force, it's been astonishing in its flimsiness and seeming disregard for both domestic and international law.
Instead of interdicting it on the president's orders, he blew it up. And it'll happen again. It's a war. It's a war on killers. It's a war on terrorists. We're not just going to hunt for drug dealers with the little fast boats and say, oh, let's try to arrest them. No, the president has said he wants to wage war on these groups.
President Trump is willing to go on offense in ways that others have not been. It won't stop with just this strike. Anyone else trafficking in those waters who we know is a designated narco-terrorist will face the same fate.
I mean, the legal authority, and I want to talk about these kids, is that there are people who are bringing literal terrorists, who are bringing deadly drugs into our country, and the President of the United States ran on a promise of stopping this poison from coming into our country.
Hey, here's the thing. Drugs are bad. Drug dealers are bad. Terrorists are bad. You know what else is bad? Unchecked power. Use of our military without proper authorization. The determination that people should be subject to death without due process of law outside of willing participants in a war. And what's also bad is conducting extrajudicial killings of foreign citizens via military strikes in international waters with the legal justification being a campaign promise, according to the vice president. Quote, Trump is willing to go on offense in ways that others have not been, end quote, says the defense secretary. Who cares if the reason no one else is willing to do it is because it's illegal? We're going to blow them up instead of arresting them and trying them in a court of law because we're waging war, says the Secretary of State. Again, let's be clear. Drugs are bad, drug dealers are bad, terrorists are bad. But there has been no declaration of war from Congress. None has even been asked for. We used to have debates over presidents conducting military strikes or going to war about whether Congress needed to be consulted before or after. And usually those debates had something to do with imminent threats with super high value targets, not a boat in the Caribbean. We're now simply skipping over all of that because Donald Trump decided that we'll skip it. The administration is betting that most Americans won't care if this is all against the law because we've got no affinity to the people who died in that boat. Seems unlikely anyone's going to take to the streets to defend drug smugglers. As Rubio also said this week, quote, these are not stockbrokers. These are not real estate agents. I wish we had some proof of that. From allegation to action, guilty as charged, case closed, due process be damned. During the signing of a paper that pretended to rename the United States Department of Defense to the Department of War on Friday, Pete Hegseth read a poem of sorts in which he said explicitly that the rule of law is no longer primary.
At your direction, Mr. President, the War Department is going to fight decisively, not endless conflicts. It's going to fight to win, not to lose. We're going to go on offense, not just on defense. Maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. We're going to raise up warriors, not just defenders. We're going to set the tone for this country. America first, peace through strength, brought to you by the War Department. We're back.
Maximum legality, not tepid maximum lethality, not tepid legality. Violent effect, not politically correct. It's not quite Lin-Manuel Miranda, but those were his exact words and wording brought to you by the brand new War Department. Vice President of the United States went even farther yesterday on social media, writing, quote, killing cartel members who poison our fellow citizens is the highest and best use of our military, end quote. To which a user pointed out, quote, killing the citizens of another nation who are civilians without any due process is called a war crime. The Vice President didn't at that point take the advice and just walk away. He responded, quote, I don't give a shit what you call it. Wow. We talk a lot about war crimes here on Velshi, committed both in the past and in the present, in places like Ukraine, Sudan, Gaza, Israel. And now the Vice President says he's okay with America committing war crimes. Vice President of the United States, the Defense Secretary, the Secretary of State, they're softening us up for more. Is it now a stretch to go from the extrajudicial killing of another country's civilians, so-called narco-terrorists, to doing something similar to Americans whom the administrations deem bad without due process? And it is going farther. Yesterday, the president posted on social media this AI-generated image threatening military action in Chicago, depicting himself as Robert Duvall's character from the Vietnam War movie Apocalypse Now and rebranding it as Shypocalypse Now, with military helicopters flying in the back of him and a city on fire. Along with that quote, Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War. Joining me now is Ben Rhodes, co-host of Pod Save the World, MSNBC political contributor, author of After the Fall, The Rise of Authoritarianism in the World We've Made. Rhodes, importantly, served as the Deputy National Security Advisor to the former President Barack Obama. Ben, great to see you. And you do come with a great deal of specific experience, but any American of a certain age knows that there are rules, even when it comes to military, even when it comes to the war on drugs, and even when it comes to somebody you think might be a terrorist.
Yeah, I mean, they're very clear domestic and legal rules for when you use force like this, right? I mean, there were debates in the Obama years, which you kind of alluded to there, Ali, about the targeting of al-Qaeda with drone strikes. Now, those are important debates to have, but the reality is that Congress had passed a law authorizing the use of military force against al-Qaeda in self-defense after September 11th. And so that was the domestic legal basis. And then that is the basis that the United States made internationally its argument that we are in a war of self-defense against al-Qaeda that attacked us on September 11th. Now here, we see no effort. It's not like they're putting out a legal basis that has holes in it. There's no effort to put forward any legal basis under U.S. law or national law of why you can just randomly choose to blow up a boat this far away from the United States international waters. We saw Donald Trump say that this speedboat was somehow driving 1,000 miles to the United States. We know nothing about the people who were on this boat. We've heard them called terrorists, which is what authoritarians always call their enemies, but we don't know what terrorist activities these people were engaged in. We're seeing the language of the war on terror and the multi-decade failed war on drugs merged together with Trump's authoritarian militaristic impulses, and it's scary, and it should scare people.
But that's great, because people don't like terrorists, people don't like drug smugglers, and if you don't have to have laws about either of those two groups, people aren't going to take to the streets. And as you have pointed out, this is kind of what happened in the Philippines, right? This is why you ended up with Rodrigo Duterte, who said drug dealers are the scourge of our society, and we're not going to subject them to the normal due process. Tens of thousands of people were killed by authorities in the Philippines, some of whom might have been drug dealers, some of whom might have been jailed for their entire lives. Nobody got a trial.
Yeah, no, and Duterte is sitting in The Hague right now, being prosecuted for war crimes because of the extrajudicial killing of alleged, in his view, drug dealers or users. I do want to say, though, Americans don't like terrorists. Americans don't like cartels. There are other things Americans don't like. They don't like endless wars. Donald Trump promised us that he was going to end these wars. He promised his supporters that he was going to be the guy that put an end to the forever wars that the United States is fighting. Now, we've already seen him expand those wars. We've already seen him bomb Iran. And now we see him bringing forever war tactics to our own hemisphere. And if you really think, if he's committed, as Pete Hegseth said, to, quote unquote, defeating this drug infusion in the United States, you really think that's something that's going to be achieved on a short-term time frame? How many boats are going to be blown up? And we've seen where the logic of this kind of thinking goes, Ali. Well, the drugs are actually coming from Venezuela, and Nicolas Maduro is the president of that country. And they've already said that they see him as kind of the leader of the cartel. They don't even explain their basis for that. We could end up in a war with Venezuela,
yes,
which is a really big country, where Maduro's been recruiting millions of people to resist an American invasion. We could have this kind of militarized presence in Latin America again, and maybe Donald Trump really does want to take over the Panama Canal. We know that war gives presidents greater powers. We know that this government has argued under the Alien Enemies Act that we are at war with Venezuela, and that is the basis for deporting people to a gulag in El Salvador. So we could see them weirdly use the war with Venezuela or Trinidad or whoever they say we're at war with as the basis for seizing more power here at home to deport people.
Yes.
Wake up. This is what they've been telling us they're going to do. This is what they are doing. They're posting AI images about invading an American city. This is all happening clear as day, Ali. And I think, sure, Americans, some people might want to get behind the rah-rah-rah notion that we're blowing up a boat with drug dealers on it, but they tend not to like where this leads. And Donald Trump got elected president in part because they don't like it.
And this isn't you and me being hyperbolic about this. Donald Trump connected all the dots for us, right? If Donald Trump hadn't posted the AI thing about Shypocalypse now, I love the smell of deportations in the morning, in the same 96 hours that Marco Rubio said we could have stopped this boat, but we decided not to. They wanted to blow it up. And Pete Hegseth bragged about 11 bodies at the bottom of the sea. And J.D. Vance said, I don't give a shit about war crimes. Donald Trump did all the heavy lifting for us. He said, and now we're coming for you, Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, it's not hyperbolic because it's happening, Ali. I mean, and look, you've got the vice president bragging about, it doesn't give an S if it's war crimes. Well, as you've said, you've covered war crimes all around the world. And one thing that you learn everywhere is that one war crime with impunity tends to beget another war crime. And this administration is feeling absolutely no pushback from the United States Congress or from anybody, really, in the way in which they're using force. Donald Trump doesn't even feel political pressure from his own base that is uncomfortable with some of this stuff in renaming it the Department of War. And the reality is what we have to be concerned about, at least if you look in Washington, they're starting to arm some of those soldiers that are deployed on the streets. I don't know what they're going to send into Chicago. And they're ratcheting up the tensions as if these are, not fellow Americans and fellow citizens, but people that need to be controlled by the United States military. And what I'm terribly worried about is if you start having armed federal agents and troops on the streets of cities with this degree of tension, when you get a Kent State type event, we're playing with a lot of fire here right now. And there's no sign from Donald Trump that he's going to do anything other than escalate the use of the United States military to serve his own personal interests, whether it's in terms of blowing up boats in the Caribbean to build a narrative around cartels that serves his purpose, or whether it's the use of the United States military in blue city after blue city. And we've already seen Los Angeles, Washington, Chicago, what happens in New York if Zohran Mamdani is elected mayor. These are the kind of questions that we need to be asking now so that we're not surprised after the fact that we've seen this kind of creeping militarization of the Trump presidency.